We have two readings this morning. Our first reading this morning begins the 5th chapter of Luke's Gospel. In the light of the story just shared with the children, we're encouraged to hear this story not just as another miracle that happened once upon a time, but rather as an invitation to dive more deeply into the message. The setting of the story is that Jesus was engulfed by people hungry for a new way, a sign of hope in difficult times. And he's also aware of the way that the fishermen had been working all night with no success. And Luke tells this story to demonstrate Jesus' understanding that to have a rich and abundant life requires us to go deeper, to open to the Spirit deep within us in order to end our hunger. The deeper water becomes an invitation to search in a new way, and the overwhelming catch becomes the promise of the life we can then have. So here's the first reading from Luke 5, verses 1 to 7 and 11. Once, while Jesus was standing beside the lake of Gennesaret, the Sea of Galilee, and the crowd was pressing in on him to hear his words, he saw two boats there at the shore of the lake. The fishermen had gotten out of them and were washing their nets. He got into one of the boats, the boat belonging to Simon, and asked him to put out a little way from shore. And then he sat and taught the crowds from the boat. And when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, "Put out into deep water and let down your nets for a catch." And Simon, that was Peter, he's also a pretty stubborn man. Simon answered, "Master, we worked all night long and we caught nothing." "Well, if you say so, I'll let down the nets." And when he had done this, he caught so many fish that their nets were beginning to break. So they signaled their partners in the other boat to come and help them. And when they had brought their boats to shore, they left everything and followed him. Second reading is a poem by Mary Oliver, and I'm sorry, Jim, I'm going to digress from your script here. You knew that was going to happen, didn't you? Because every so often I talk to people who think that a poem is a sort of an elite thing that only English professors can understand and enjoy. And I want to suggest to you that a poem isn't about things, and it isn't about stories, and it isn't lectures. In fact, a third of the Bible is poetry. It's not history or instruction. But a poem is about trying to catch your feelings in the fewest possible number of words, and so it's very condensed. As you listen to this poem by Mary Oliver, don't try to say, what's she talking about? What is this all about? What are we trying to get at here? Listen to your feelings and hear how the words might move you. What Mary Oliver is doing in this poem is imagining our return to the sea from which we are all creatures. Every land creature started off in the sea. And that's also reflected in the fact that every one of us started out in a salt sea, in our mother's womb, a good theme for Mother's Day. We all swam before we learned to walk, or even to breathe. So she imagines our return to being creatures of the sea, and again, there's that context of going deeper. And so I invite you to hear this poem as a celebration of our connectedness to all of life, knowing that the Spirit of life has absolutely no limits. The Sea by Mary Oliver. Stroke by stroke, my body remembers that life and cries for the lost parts of itself. fins, gills opening like flowers into the flesh, my legs wanting to lock and become one muscle. I swear I know just what the blue-gray scales shingling the rest of me would feel like. Paradise. Sprawled in that mother lap, in that dream house of salt and exercise, what a spillage of nostalgia spills from the very bones. How they long to give up that long trek inland, the brittle beauty of understanding, and dive, and simply become again a flaming body of blind feeling, sleeking along in the luminous roughage of the sea's body, vanished like victory inside that in-sucking genesis, that roaring flamboyance, the perfect beginning and conclusion of our own. May these words open us to Spirit's presence.
And may wisdom come to us this day.